Good morning, everybody. We're going to be working on page 92 today, and we're going to be focusing on using these benchmarks to compare two fractions on the number line. And we're going to use two benchmarks today, but I am actually going to combine these benchmarks into one so that we can really understand when we go past one whole. Okay, so our old benchmark used to look like this, where we started at 0, 1/2, and 1 whole. And today, though, we're going beyond 1 whole. So we're going more than 1 whole. So we're going to have a new benchmark today. And our benchmark is going to look more like this, where we are starting with 0. We are starting at 1/2. Then we are starting with 1 whole, 1/2, and we're going to 2. Now, our number line is going to have to be pretty long here so that we can write this benchmark and figure out where the fraction would be in this benchmark. So you need to write your number lines very small today in order to so that we can use our benchmarks. We will have room, so let's start with these benchmarks and with understanding how to see beyond 1 whole. So today I'm going to be working on A, B, C, D, E, and F. So I'm going to put a little line right here just so that I can see where I'm going to end and start my benchmarks. Perfect. So here with A with 3/8 and 7/12, let's start our benchmark. Okay, and remember our middle is going to be 1 whole, and this is going to be 2 whole and 0. And so remember, we're going beyond 1 whole, but we also need to see that this is 1/2 here, and that this is 1 whole and 1/2. Okay, so when we look at our benchmarks today, you need to be very careful on where you are placing 1/2, 1 whole, 1/2, and 2, making sure that, hey, this is all makes sense because we go 0 to 1/2 to 1 whole, 1/1/2, and to 2. So let's look at our benchmark of 3/8. So we have 3/8 here. I know that we would have 0/8 here, and 1/2 of that would be 4/8, and then the whole would be 8/8. So it's not going to go beyond 1 whole here because 3/8 is less than a whole. So where would 3/8 go in our number line? Well, you look at this 3 here, right? It is before 1/1/2, or sorry, before 1/2. So 3/8 would definitely go here. Perfect. And remember, write your benchmarks really lightly because we're going to erase those, or not our benchmarks, but erase our fractions so that we can kind of see where we're going to be. So let's look at 7/12 now. Remember, we're going to have 0/12, and 1/2 of 12 is going to be 6/12, and 1 whole is going to be 12/12. Perfect. So where would 7/12 be? Well, it would be right after the 6, right? Right after 1/2. So we would have 7/12 here. And let's erase those erase those fractions above so it doesn't confuse us. And there we go. So I definitely know that 7/12 is a little bit larger than 3/8. So boom, using that benchmark. All right, let's work with B now and check it out. C, using that new benchmark. All right, remember we're starting at 0. The middle is going to be 1, and then 2, and then we're going to cut this in half and cut this in 1 and 1/2. Okay, so let's start with B here. We have we have 5/12. So this is going to be 0/12. This is going to be 6/12. This is half of 12. And this is going to be 12/12. So this looks like it's not going to be over one whole. And we have 5 here, and that is before 6. So we definitely know that 5/12 is going to go right before a half. Excellent. All right, let's go into our next problem here, and that is going to be 7/8. So remember, we're going to have 0/8. We're going to have 4/8 because that's half of 8 is 4, and we'll have 8/8. So this isn't going to be larger than a whole, so we know that it's going to stay within our old benchmark. And we have 7 here. So that is definitely telling me that's right before 8/8, almost one whole. So we have 7/8 here. I'm going to erase that. Perfect. Nice. So what fraction is larger? Well, 7/8 is, because it's closer to the one whole. So 7/8 is larger. So we can really tell. So C now is where we are going to have, we're going to fall into some issues here. Let's make our benchmark first. 0, 1 whole, and 2, and 1/2, and 1 and 1/2. Awesome. So this is where we're going to fall into some brief issues for 8/6. So we're going to have to do some math on the side, and this is a improper fraction, meaning that it is a fraction that is greater than 1, okay? It will not, the fraction is going to go somewhere beyond, somewhere in this section because it's beyond the one whole. It will not go in this section because it is less than a whole in that section. So we are going to be working on this section here. So how do we tell? How do we go from an improper fraction to a mixed number? And a mixed number means that we have a whole and we have a fraction right next to it. This is a mixed number. All right, this is a mixed number. So how are we going to know it? How are we going to figure this out? Well, a good clue is this denominator here. That's 6, right? That 6 is telling me that the whole is going to be 6/6, right? So that denominator tells us, hey, we can take out 6/6, okay? And then from there, when we take that out, what is 8 subtract 6, right? Because we took 6/6 out. So 8 subtract 6 is 2. So we can add 2/6 to this to make 8/6. Now, this is going to equal, this 6/6 is actually 1 whole. If I put a 1 around it, so that's 1 whole. And then I'm going to connect the 2/6 next to it. So we have 1 whole and 2/6. So 8/6 becomes 1 and 2/6. 1 and 2/6. All right. So in order for us to solve this, we can do a little bit of math here. So it's going to be 1 and 0/6, right? 1 and 3/6, and then this is going to be 1 and 6/6, which would be 2 whole. Correct? Perfect. So now we have a good understanding of where this 1 and 2/6 is going to be, this mixed number. You can see that we have 2 here, and this is 3, so it's going to go right before the half. So I know that 1 and 2/6 is going to go somewhere right here. Perfect. That makes a lot of sense for me. Awesome. So let's check out where 11/12 goes. And 11/12 is definitely less than a whole. So we got 0/12, we got 6/12, and we have 12/12. And 11/12 is going to go right before the whole number. All right, so it looks like 1 and 2/6 is indeed larger. Boom. So our mixed number is larger here. Cool. So I would like to do one more example of when you see that improper fraction and how to make it a mixed number to use for our benchmark. So I am not going to work on D. All right, you can do that on your own. Those are both fractions. And I am not going to work on E, but I am going to work on F. All right, right down in this corner here. And we are going to do this together just one more time so you can kind of see that improper fraction. So let's work with 0, 1 whole, and 1 and 1. Oh, sorry. This is going to be 2. And 1 and 1/2, and 1/2. All right, excellent. Perfect. So let's work with 5/4 here. So 5/4, it does equal. So this is a fraction greater than 1. So remember, look at that denominator, and that's going to tell you what the whole is going to be. And the whole is going to be 4/4. So we're going to, you got to think of that, of us taking that out of 5/4. So you have to almost think of it as a small subtraction problem. And 5 subtract 4 is going to be 1/4 is going to be left over. Okay? So to make this a mixed number, we know this is 1 whole. So that's 1 whole. And this is 1, and then 1/4 is left. So there is our mixed number. Okay? So let's plot this in our benchmark. So we have 1 and 0/4. We have 1 and 2/4 because that's a half, and then we have 1 and 4/4. Okay, so it looks like we have 1 whole and 1/4. So right before that 0/4 here. Right? So I definitely know it's probably going to be right below, right here. So it's going to be 1 and 1/4. Perfect. So going further, let's do 7/8. So 7/8, it's less than a whole. So we're going to work with 0/8, 4/8, and then finally, which is great here, it's going to be 8/8, right, for that whole. So 7/8, it's definitely going to go right before the 8 because it's 7. So we're working with 7/8 here. All right. So this fraction, 1 and 1/4, is actually just a little bit larger than our 7/8. Perfect. All right, and that's how we're using our new benchmark today. That's how we're changing improper fractions to mixed numbers.